Hello, it's Alex, the Bookubus, or the Boob Anus. That's right, it's another GarbAugust video, and today I'm going to be doing my wrap-up. So this year, one of the added elements was you could watch films as well as reading books. So yeah, I definitely checked off a few films off my watch list, and I got through, well, almost have got through all but one of the books I had on my original TBR. So yeah, it's been a really good month overall. So I'll start off with Garbology because yeah, this was kind of like a big deal. You know, Olly, CriminOlly and Troy Tradup. I will leave both of them linked below, of course. Yeah, they put this together, put a lot of time and effort into it, and this is the GarbAugust anthology of awesome trash. So we have a ton of stories in here from various people, some of them booktubers, yeah, some friends like Andrew, it came from The Page, and Regina from Regina's Haunted Library, amongst many others. I have a story in here too, so yeah, I was very happy to be a part of this. Overall, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a very entertaining time, and I didn't think there were any bad stories in the bunch. You know, some of them I thought were good and some I thought were great. Overall, I rated this 4 stars because, yeah, I really did have a good time with it, and I think you should check it out if it sounds fun to you and you haven't already picked up a copy. You can get a paperback copy or an ebook, and I am going to do a little giveaway because I have 2 copies of the paperback and it's a chunky one. So if you would like a copy of this, you can enter the giveaway. I'm afraid it is going to be US only just because that's where I currently live, and shipping outside of the US is really stupidly expensive. So US only, you must be 18 or older, you must be okay with giving me your mailing address, and we're going to have a keyword for if you want to enter the giveaway. So the keyword is bin bag. That's all one word, bin bag, B-I-N-B-A-G. If you leave that in a comment below, then I will enter you into the giveaway, and I will do, yeah, like a random draw, probably like a week from whenever this video goes up. And I will, yeah, likely announce that in my community tab on my YouTube channel. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Okay, so what else did I read? I read 3 books in the Witches series by James Dark. This is book 6, The Killing, book 7, The Feud, and book 8, The Plague. And I had a really good time with these. These are the last 3 books in this 8-book series. So obviously I'd read the previous ones before. And this series is set in 17th century England and during the time of like the witch finders and witch trials and such like. And we're following one character called John, who is out for revenge against this witch finder for some things that he has done relating to John. And yeah, so it's kind of like men's adventure meets horror. There is a bunch of, you know, violence in here. There's lots of action scenes, and there's also a lot of like gruesome torture and stuff going on. And also, yeah, there's a bunch of sex thrown in there too, because why not? These were written in the 80s, so yeah, they're very 80s, but really enjoyed them. Like, yeah, I genuinely have had such a good time reading this series, and there are definitely characters in here that you really do grow to feel for. And yeah, I won't say anything specific about these 3 books since they are quite far along in the series. And unfortunately these books are hard to find, but if you can track them down, then I highly recommend it. I gave these 4 stars each. I also read The Rats by James Herbert. I have enjoyed a few of his other novels, but had never read The Rats. And I'm really glad I finally picked this one up because, yeah, this was a lot of fun too. Yeah, it's set in the UK, so we've got that kind of like, just that grittiness that I feel British horror has. And yeah, it's about killer rats. What more do you want, really? So yeah, this has lots of gory violence, lots of rat attacks and such like. And yeah, I really enjoy his writing, and he is really good at introducing a character, giving them a whole backstory and everything, and then killing them off. It's great. Thoroughly entertaining. I gave this one 4 stars as well. I read The Possession of Jessica Young by Russ Martin. This was my first time reading this author, and I've been meaning to check him out for a while. I will admit I was kind of hesitant because most of his books are about kind of like mind control and using that power to kind of make women sex slaves and stuff. And I just thought, yeah, there's potential there for that to be like highly problematic, obviously. But I actually did really enjoy this because while that is an element of the story, there's basically this group of people who all have mind control powers, and their intention is to eventually like take over the world. And we're following this one particular woman, Jessica of the title, who also has these mind control powers. And so this organisation kind of find her and want her to be a part of their gang, but she's like, yeah, not really. So instead they use their mind control on her and take away her powers, and she is kind of like made into like a slave. Yeah, it's some crazy stuff. It does have some content that is involving these men who have mind control powers, using that on teenage girls in order to turn them into slaves. So obviously, yikes. But it does have this quite interesting protagonist of Jessica. You know, she's her own woman and she has been through some stuff. She's trying to deal with it. And yeah, she's also trying to get her like power back and fight back against this organisation. And she is, you know, she's painted as quite a strong character, and has quite an interesting backstory and stuff. So while she does end up in some compromising situations because of the other stuff going on, I did really quite enjoy it more than I thought I might, just because of the way that it was written and the way that she was portrayed. So yeah, an interesting one. I gave this one 4 stars as well, and I do believe that this is like the first in a series, and it does kind of like, while it does wrap it up in some ways, it does seem to leave things open for, you know, continuing the story. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough about this, but it was an interesting one. If you've read any Russ Martin, I would love to hear your thoughts. Then I read a bit of vintage YA, and I read a couple of books that were published in the Point Horror series. This is The Vampire's Love duology. We've got Blood Curse and Blood Spell by Janice Harrell. And this is a vampire story, obviously. Came out in the mid-90s, pre-Twilight. And yeah, we've got this female vampire who kind of rocks up, and she meets this guy and falls in love with him. And she is determined to, you know, make him hers. But he has a girlfriend already, like they're both humans. And so anyway, she starts going to the high school that they go to. And yeah, these were a bit of a mixed bag for me. I did quite enjoy her writing style, and she does have quite a way with words from time to time. Just some of her descriptions and details I really enjoyed. But story-wise, it was just not the most interesting. And I think while there was some attempt to have some kind of interesting elements and backstories to these characters, it just never quite, you know, I don't know, hooked me in enough for me to really care, I guess. And also within the story, going over both books, a lot of it relies very heavily on some pretty huge coincidences. So yeah, they were still okay, somewhat enjoyable. I gave them 3 stars each. Glad I checked them out. Okay, I've got one more book to talk about. I did want to quickly mention I did not get to Scanners, the novelisation. Unfortunately, I didn't have time. This was on my original TBR, but yeah, I'll have to get to it another time instead. But the last book I wanted to talk about is Relics by Sean Hudson. And this one I haven't quite finished at the time of filming, but I wanted to get this video done while I had the time. And I can't see this being less than a 4-star read by the time I finish it. I'm buddy reading this with my friend Roman, and we are both having a really great time with it. It is, yeah, it's another British horror from the 80s, and yeah, we've got all the gory violence and sleazy sex and just balls to the wall Sean Hudson craziness that you could want. Like, this book gives me everything that I would want from a horror novel, honestly. There's an archaeological dig that uncovers a bunch of skeletons and like child skeletons. We've got, yeah, people being killed off in very gruesome fashion, eye gougings, disembowelments, the lot. We've got these like satanic ritual orgies and a whole lot of creepy stuff going on. Yeah, having a very good time with this. This is only my second Sean Hudson novel. I really enjoyed Deadhead by him. But yeah, I'm very happy to be reading a bit more of his work, and I definitely need to read more after I finish this one up. Okay, and while I'm here, I wanted to quickly go through the trashy films that I also watched in August. So I decided to revisit the Police Academy series. This was the kind of thing, you know, I watched as a kid growing up in the 80s and 90s, and I haven't seen them since then. So it was overall quite a fun time to revisit them. You know, they're not great, and there are definitely certain things in them that have not aged well. If you've never seen them before, I don't really know if they would be entertaining, you know, without that nostalgia factor. But, you know, they're a fun caper. I think the first one was probably my favourite on this rewatch, at least. You know, you're just kind of being introduced to all of the quirky characters and whatnot, and it was just a fun time. And then, yeah, Mahoney, Steve Guttenberg is only in the first 4, so they're obviously the best ones. And they do start to go downhill after that. There are 7 in total, and the final one, Mission to Moscow, is one that I had not seen before. So the first 6 I'd seen previously, but yeah, the last one was my first time watching it, and man, it was an absolute stinker. Like, not even so bad it's good, it was just bad. It was like a 1 star. I didn't even laugh at any point in the whole film, whereas at least the other ones, they did, you know, they were entertaining and amusing and, yeah, hilarious in parts. So, yeah, avoid the last one. And then, yeah, I watched a few other films. I watched a Lifetime movie. It's called Hoax, The Kidnapping of Sherry Papini, because I had recently watched a documentary about the Sherry Papini case on Hulu. I think it was called The Perfect Wife, and it was really interesting. It's a, yeah, pretty interesting case. It's about a woman who went missing for a few weeks, and when she came back she claimed she'd been kidnapped and tortured, but then it actually turned out that she just made the whole thing up. So yeah, I watched the Lifetime movie of that. It wasn't great. I didn't expect it to be, but it was, you know, somewhat entertaining, I guess. And then I watched Sunset Heat, which is a action thriller from the 90s. Yeah, it was very generic, you know, pretty kind of like paint by numbers style, but it was kind of entertaining. It had Dennis Hopper, you know, playing the kind of typical character that Dennis Hopper plays. Had a small role of Tony Todd, who played one of his henchmen, so he was great. And also it had Adam Ant, so that was cool to see him because he's awesome. Unfortunately, he wasn't in it a ton, but it was still pretty fun to see him in it. So yeah, not a great film, but, you know, somewhat entertaining. And then I watched Robo War, which is an Italian Predator / RoboCop ripoff, and what a glorious time. It was so much fun. I really enjoyed this one. Yeah, it's, you know, it's not great objectively, but you've got a lot of guys with their biceps out for like the whole film, you know, crawling through the jungle, shooting stuff. I mean, I don't know what else you want from a film. That was enough to keep me entertained. And they're being hunted down by this like robot thing, who, yeah, there's a whole backstory for that, which I won't spoil for you. But yeah, I found this one to be a good time. This one I would recommend if it's something that sounds interesting to you, because yeah, I had a good time with it. And last up, I watched Deadly Eyes, which is an adaptation of The Rats by James Herbert. So I figured I should, yeah, get both of those in to the same month. And yeah, this one was pretty fun too. It's not very similar to the book. It does kind of take the general concept and yeah, it sets it in the US rather than the UK. And yeah, just the general gist of the story and the characters are a bit different. But it was still a fun time. I enjoyed it. And as I was watching it, the giant rats that they've got running around, I'm like, how did they do that? I'm like, they looked too real to be like an animatronic or something. So I had to look it up, and it turns out they used dachshunds as the giant rats. And I was like, oh my God, that's actually genius. So yeah, a round of applause to whoever came up with that and made it happen, because it was absolutely brilliant. So yeah, that was another one that I would recommend if it sounds fun to you. Yeah, I had a good time with that one. And so that wraps up my GarbAugust 2024. Thank you to Olly at CriminOlly for putting this together. Thank you to all of the co-hosts for, yeah, putting out fun videos and stuff throughout the month. It's been cool seeing what everyone else has been reading and watching. Thank you to Troy for putting the anthology together. Again, I'm so stoked to be a part of that, and yeah, I hope if you check it out you enjoy it. If you want a copy and you don't have one and you fit the criteria that I mentioned earlier in the video, then yeah, feel free to enter the giveaway. So that wraps up GarbAugust for another year. It's been a really fun time, and yeah, signing off once again as the Boob Anus. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you again in my next video. Bye!